Boss Rush 820 day 1. So this is a pretty farmable day, but you do need some specific investment to really make it great. And that's because we've got Netherspite as the first boss, and everything afterwards is artillery strikeable. But for Netherspite, it's an arcane-based fight, so we're using Drek'Thar's spellbook to mitigate all the incoming damage here. This is bugged and gives you double the amount stated on the tooltip here, so this says 104, but it actually gives me 208 arcane resistance. The arcane anomaly goes up to around 300 on 820, so ideally, if you want to mitigate all incoming damage, you would need this up to like 170-ish arcane resistance. But to reliably beat it with this Deathwing comp, you really only need this around like 120 to 130 for even the very highest arcane rolls, I believe. As you can see, I don't have mine up that high, so I'm not 100% sure on that. But it's somewhere in that ballpark. And if you have enough arcane resistance that you fully nullify the arcane attacks, you don't take any damage on this fight by just bringing Drek'Thar, because the Spirit Guide summon here with its taunt is able to block all the incoming melee attacks from Netherspite as well, so there's absolutely no incoming damage, and then you can use any mercenaries you want in the other 2 slots to kill the boss. Deathwing Rattlegore is the fastest way. Previously we used Baron Geddon, which is also a very fast way to kill the boss, but you can run anything in those slots. So if you wanted to run Cookie Varden, or Belinda Varden, or just anything else that deals damage quickly, then that's an option as well. And then you just fill up your bench with artillery strikes, or you could even run Celestials. You could kill the boss with Celestials and have Celestials on the bench and just use Drek'Thar to protect them. That's an option as well. But that arcane resistance equipment is a huge thing. Now, if you don't have the arcane resistance equipment at all, but you did invest in Deathwing, I found that this comp does work most of the time. But there are some problems with the arcane damage potentially killing your Deathwing on turn 2, so I'll get into that when we go over that. But to run down the comp here, this is what I believe is the best comp, is Drek'Thar with his spellbook. Deathwing's equipment doesn't matter, I've just got the Demon Soul on here. Rattlegore with Rattling Bones. Again, I'm using Blood Moon, and that's in case the blue ad survives, because the other ones are green and they'll just die to Deathwing crits. But if the blue ad survives and you need to clean it up, Blood Moon equipment and just hitting it with a Moonlight Strike is a good way to do that, to finish off those last few HP. Dragon Axe on Voone for a similar reason, and Round of Drinks on Edwin, so you can Assisted Strike as well to do that cleanup if you need to. To go over the Arfus comp here, we've got Arfus with Downward Dog, Rattlegore with Rattling Bones, Jaina with Ice Block, Deathwing, again, equipment doesn't matter, I've just got the Demon Soul on. And then same thing for the cleanup potential if your Deathwing damage falls short. I've got Blood Moon and Dragon Axe. Now for the Deathwing damage, I'm right about where it needs to be currently. So that's 136 Destroy All Life and 135 HP on Rattlegore. That gives you around 3,700. It's like 3,670-ish damage, which is usually enough to kill the blue. And you can shoot a little bit of extra damage with your other mercenaries on those first 2 turns before your Destroy All Life goes off, and then you have that potential to clean up with the Artillery Strike mercs if you do fall short. And then the Geddon comp here, now this is basically the same thing we ran back on 580 day 2, which was the last time we had Netherspite as a first boss. On that run, we also had Belinda as a follow-up boss, so we were doing some things a bit differently to try to ensure we could kill Belinda afterwards. This was one of the comps that we ran that runs 4 artillery strikes. We also did a Bran comp, where we ran Bran as a fire activator with Geddon, and then just 3 artillery strikes. But that comp has no way to kill off Bran or Geddon, so you end up with much worse artillery strike odds, and you don't need them alive to kill Belinda afterwards like we did on that previous run. So I'll link that video in the description if you want to see how we were running some of that stuff. I don't think I did the Bran version in that video though, but that's an option if you wanted to use it. But I think this is the best version of the Geddon comp to run for today if you do want to run that. So I'm using Genn with no equipment because I do want to try to kill my Geddon off. If you're going to not kill Geddon off, you can run the healing equipment, but it will also cause those healing animations to play every time you cast an even speed ability, so you could leave it off even if you're not going to kill off your Geddon. We got Geddon with Mark of Conflag, Drek'Thar with that Arcane Resistance equipment, and then Dragon Rune Axe, Round of Drinks, and Ship Spell, and it doesn't really matter what you do on these other mercenaries here, and you could run Eudora as well if you wanted to. So let me hop into it with the Deathwing comp here first, because I think it is the best one to farm this with if you have stats. And this is the Deathwing Drek'Thar comp. So for me, I currently can only handle like a bit above 200 arcane damage. We got a low one here, so we'll be fine. I think I can do like 220 or something like that. But all you need to do, if the Arcane is low enough, is swing with this red to prevent Netherspite from getting Wind Fury and summon a Spirit Guide. And if you want to, you can shoot with Rattlegore if you need that damage on the blue here. I don't need it though, so I'm just going to pass with Rattlegore. So just swing with red, make a wolf. And then turn 2 is just destroy all life. You can also swing with this blue portal to prevent anyone from gaining that mitigation. And again, you can shoot with Rattlegore if you need to. And then here you could just immediately close the client and restart it. I'm going to go ahead and let it play out so you can see what happens when you're not watching. Now, if the Arcane Anomaly is a bit higher, you'll probably get shot on your Drek'Thar and your Deathwing. So having their hit points raised is helpful. You can see on my Deathwing he had like 230 something hit points. That's because I put 15 into all his upgrades, except I put 10 in his first 2 abilities, just to get his HP up a bit, and those are really cheap upgrades, like 10 to 15 renown per. So I went ahead and gave him that HP, and I have my Drek'Thar's also at like 226, I think, so he can survive a couple of hits even if the Arcane Anomaly is a bit too high. So that's helpful if you don't have that Arcane Resistance equipment fully leveled up. It might be a bit cheaper, actually, to just get some more HP on your Drek'Thar and your Deathwing, rather than fully investing in Arcane Resistance, so you can save a little bit of renown on that Arcane Resistance that way, if you're going to run this comp. So we've killed them, but we do have to still sit through the rest of these animations, so this is another reason why restarting the client is a good option. But even if you go through the full, like 27 activations in my case, it only takes like a minute and a half or so. So it's still a good quick farm even if you don't do the client restarts. But this is a much faster farm if you do restart. It saves you like a minute of animation time to just close and restart the client. Okay, and then you just hit your artillery strike, and we have three artillery strike, 1 non-artillery strike, so the odds are quite good. And then that's the downside of the Arfus Jaina version, is you have to cut an artillery strike to put in both of those mercenaries instead of just running Drek'Thar. So just collecting our 205 renown here. And the artillery strike requirement's not too bad. I think the highest is Rotimer, who has who's a blue with 230 HP. And then Whatley is a red with I think 205. He gets a little buff at the start. So as you can see, we have the 230 here on Rotimer, and then he's got 205, and that's because of that passive. He's a pirate, so he gets that extra 5 HP. Alright, so we got our 205 renown here, which I need to get my Arcane Resistant a bit more if I'm going to farm with this. But the next comp is this Arfus one, which I've already gone over, so let's just jump into it here. So with this one, it's a little bit awkward because of the different Arcane Anomaly rolls. So we just do the normal opener, so they're going to do 167. The portal logic is like 12 base damage, and then it's like 21 base damage on the Arcane Fling here. So this is going to be not enough to kill my Jaina if she gets shot. So I'm going to swing here. Just to do some extra damage on the blue. And I'm going to shoot my Jaina. Because I want to make sure that she dies. And we're just going to swing with these. Because they don't do anything for us, really. Let's get rid of them. But I want to make sure that we proc our Ice Block here if we can. If there's a higher Arcane Anomaly, you probably don't need to do that. To ensure you could just shoot at the blue instead. Okay, and then on this turn, hopefully you didn't get a Wind Fury on Netherspite. But if he does, it's fine because you'll summon this Water Elemental and it'll freeze that Wind Fury hit, so you'll be fine, and then you just destroy all life, and you can shoot if you want to do some extra damage to that blue. And so that's the attack that can mess you up. If that portal logic ability there decided to shoot my Deathwing, then I would lose. So that's one of the downsides of this comp. So you have the little bit of awkwardness on turn 1 with maybe your Ice Block doesn't proc, and you really want Jaina to die on turn 2, so you need that Ice Block to activate on turn 1. So the low anomalies can be a risk, and then the high anomalies can be a risk because this green ad here can potentially kill your Deathwing before you get Destroy All Life cast off, since both Netherspite and this middle ad act even with the Arfus slow before you get to act. There might be some way to adjust the comp to get around that. I haven't really thought about it too much. But this is an option to beat the boss and potentially farm with. The targeting of that portal logic probably depends on the relative HP of your Deathwing and your Jaina. So getting your HP up in your Deathwing, if you're having trouble with Deathwing being targeted too frequently, might help you out there. So doing those cheap upgrades, getting everything up to like rank 15 or so, and not having upgrades on your Jaina is probably helpful for targeting. So this is the Deathwing Rattlegore comp that's sort of the generic version that should work on the majority of bosses, and as you can see, even Netherspite is no exception to that. At least being a possibility to beat him with it. Alright, we did hit Artillery Strike, even though we have one fewer Artillery Strike mercenary, so let's go ahead and collect our renown here. Then we got the one more comp that I'll show with the Baron Geddon. And then I'll also link that 580 Day 2 video in the description in case you want to see what we were doing the last time we had Netherspite. That Cursed Blade treasure I just took, it is useful on some fights. So if you are trying to decide between which abilities to put points into to raise your Rattlegore's HP, Cursed Blade's a pretty decent choice. There are some circumstances where having that really high attack on Rattlegore is better than the other treasures. And obviously you don't care about him taking double damage since he probably dies to every swing anyway, and he's got so many lives that it doesn't matter if he dies. And when the so you see he gets that -2, -5 for each death. It never reduces him below the amount of the Cursed Blade, because it can only take him down to 0 attack, and then the Cursed Blade is applied afterwards. So you'll always have at least as much attack as the Cursed Blade if you do take that treasure, even if he dies a whole bunch of times. Okay, so we got the Baron Geddon comp here now. And again, it's a Geddon farm. Bigger Geddon equals better Geddon. We're on 820 now, so about 410, so half of 820 is 410. That's about where I would want to keep my Inferno if I'm going to run Geddon comps. It's not a hard requirement, but it's it just works out well to keep him around half of the boss rush level if you're going to be using Geddon. Although, I don't know, if Deathwing might just be replacing Geddon for me, so I might just stop investing in Geddon soon, I'm not sure. So we did get 203 Arcane. As you can see here, I have 208 Arcane resistance because it's double this amount. So I'm going to take 0 Arcane damage. Well, I'll take a bit of Arcane damage because these here have a little bit of base value on their attacks. So this one would do like 10, and then this one would do 7, and then they can crit too. So this one would do 14 on a crit, and then another 10 here if they're going to probably shoot my Drek'Thar. So with this comp, you just swing into the highest attack with both the portals, and then you can soften up your own mercenaries if your Arcane is low enough. So I'm going to shoot my Drek'Thar once, and then you just make wolves. And that's just to ensure that they never try targeting Geddon with this portal logic, because if that portal logic hits your Geddon, it messes up your fire combo. If my Arcane were any higher, but it was still in the doable range, I would not shoot my Drek'Thar there and let them whittle him down with damage. So I would either shoot at the enemies or shoot my Geddon early. It just depends on how much Arcane there is. This is going to get redirected because of this Cosmic Awe ability here. It makes Genn shoot at Netherspite no matter what you target. But I do want to get my Geddon a bit lower now. So I'm just going to shoot my Genn into Geddon. But every turn now, we're just getting rid of the portals. Shoot with Genn, Inferno, summon a wolf. Shoot with Genn, Inferno, summon a wolf. Just repeat that until they're low enough, and then we want to kill off our Geddon and our Drek'Thar, ideally at the end. If you don't want to mess with killing off Geddon, you just take the hit on your artillery strike odds. But that's up to you, whatever you want to go with. If I run this comp, I do like to kill off my Geddon. But I'm going to probably farm with that first comp, the Deathwing Drek'Thar comp. If I do any farming. I might take a little bit of a break from farming for a bit, but we'll see. So I do 400 damage per Inferno, so we've got 4 more Infernos here. Which my Drek'Thar might be getting a little dangerous, though. It might have been better to not shoot him, even though I do mitigate a good amount of the damage. But we'll see how it works out. Might be able to squeak by still. Okay, so these guys are low enough now. And we would be redirected anyways, so it doesn't matter what we target. So we are going to lose Drek'Thar this turn. But I think we'll be okay still. Alright, so I've got my fire combo activator out here. I might need to transform, because if I transform with Genn, that's the only way that I can prevent this attack from killing Geddon prematurely. And it'll also protect my Genn from this crit. I did kind of mess this up a little bit by shooting my Drek'Thar at the start. I thought I could survive this anomaly, but I needed to not shoot him. But that's fine. I'm going to swing here to make space for this evasive worm. And then we still have a fire combo activator with our Voone for next turn. Okay, we lost our Geddon, but that's fine, I think. I can make them go last if I want to. Since I did bring Ship Spell, or I can bring Edwin out. I think we've got enough damage here. So I'm just going to make him go last. And then we'll get to shoot with Voone and attack with the worm. I'm going to Moonlight Strike, or I could swing. Either way would be fine. And then I'm going to shoot with that. and swing with that, and we'll make him go last and do damage with these as well. So I salvaged it, but I should have probably just not shot my Drek'Thar at the start there. And then either shoot Geddon or wait a couple turns to start shooting Geddon, and it would have worked out. Okay, got our artillery strike though. And the advantage of this comp is, as you can see, we have only artillery strike mercenaries alive, so your odds are a bit better, but it takes longer to get those first boss down, so... And some people were saying they don't like messing with killing Geddon at all, and in that case, you can just either shoot Drek'Thar. If the arcane anomaly is really low and the attack anomalies are low on the enemies, you could shoot your Drek'Thar with Genn at the start, or you can just wait until the very end of the fight when there's only one enemy left and just swing into it with Drek'Thar, and it's usually pretty easy to get the cleanup that way, and then you'll just end the fight with Geddon alive and 4 artillery strikes, which is still good odds. So if you preferred that method, feel free to run it that way. And again, there's you can run the healing equipment on Genn if you do that, which does add a layer of safety, but you don't really need that layer of safety, and it does add a bit of animation time with those healing animations activating on every even speed cast. So I would probably leave the healing equipment off personally, but I'm just going to run this with Deathwing instead, if I do run it. So 205 per run, pretty good farming day. It just has a little bit of stat requirement to get into it, but if you do have the arcane resistance, as I mentioned at the start, that basically solves the fight. No incoming damage at all if you have that arcane resistance up. And once you've done that, you can just play around with stuff. So this is actually a good fight to test comps on. So if you have some particular thing you've been wanting to play around with in those other 2 slots along with Drek'Thar, just go ahead and do it that way. We also ran a Garrosh Dueling Gauntlets, I think, on the 580 Day 2 video, which I'll link in the comments if you want to see how that one played. So you can kill it that way if you want to. But it's not the fastest way to do it, so I didn't feature that here. But any 2 mercenaries you want to bring, if you want to do a Lord Jaraxxus, Fist of Jaraxxus comp, you can do that. But yeah, you can do Medivh birds. Just anything you want to play around with. They'll just take a lot longer, and you do have those slower animations from that blue ad, shooting damage equal to the speed of your ability every time you act. So the Geddon and the Deathwing comps are definitely the fastest way to beat it. And I think this one here, with Drek'Thar and Deathwing, is the best way to farm. So good luck on your runs.